South Africa, Africa and the world is today commemorating the 14th year of the passing of humanitarian musical icon Mama Miriam Makeba. Dr Makeba was the UN Humanitarian and Goodwill Ambassador and she passed away in 2008. The Miriam Makeba Foundation has urged people of the world to celebrate Mama Africa's legacy by emulating her humanitarian spirit. The foundation has emphasized that people should honor Dr Makeba by reaching out to one another and treat each other with respect and love. This year also coincides with the 90th birthday anniversary celebrations, as Mama Africa would have been 90 years old on the 4th of March in 2002. In tribute to her memory and legendary work, songstress, a United Kingdom-based musical duo group named Lavender have dedicated their brand new single entitled First Bagel of the Night, featuring Miriam Makeba for her birthday anniversary. United Kingdom artist Ntantu has relaunched and dedicated his new single entitled Far Away, featuring Mama Miriam. All right, let's speak a little bit more about her life, her legacy. Mama Africa, who, as we mentioned, was a humanitarian, and her musical contribution to Africa and the world. We now speak to Africa Affairs analyst advocate Sipho Mantula. Very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Ntantu. So let's talk about that. I mean, just reflecting back on the fact that she died in Castel Volturno near Naples in Italy. And, you know, I remember at the time a lot was spoken about how she's still continuing to perform, but she was in poor health at the time. And to lose her sadly in a foreign country once again, where she'd been in exile for so long.
Good evening, Sister Peace, and even to the viewers, Jambo Africa. Indeed, our Pan-African Cultural Ambassador, Miriam Makeba, transitioning on this day, a day which I think the African Union and South Africa must declare it as a Miriam Makeba commemorative day. As we have said, she was in a mission in Italy to deal with the gangsters there, to raise funds, by the way, when she went to Italy in 2008. Equally, we will recall that Miriam Makeba, as a cultural emissary, it is important for the people of Africa, for the people of South Africa, to start to emulate her characters, because as South Africa, we are going through tough times. As Africa, we are going through tough times. Hence, today we saw the Miriam Makeba Center for Girls had an event that was commemorating Miriam Makeba on issues of agriculture. That was one of her passions. The food security. How do we feed Africa? As Sankara used to say, he who feeds you will always control you. Now, Miriam Makeba took that role of dealing with food insecurity as a food security ambassador of the UN, but also on the issues of conflict that we see in the African continent. Miriam Makeba played a critical role in many conflict-riddled countries. So, is, as we remember the mother of the nation, the mother of Africa, it is important to always take this moment of remembering that it's a 90 years, also the 9 decades. If one has to go through the 9 decades, the 9 lives that Miriam lived, he had a 9 diplomatic passport. She was a woman who was of a style. You can see even from your footage, the dress code, the love for children, the love for African food. That's how we should emulate and remember the mother of Africa.
And I'd like to talk a little bit about her work ethic as well. In some circles, some would claim that she is a diva, that she's tempestuous, but if one had ever been in proximity with her, especially when she worked, one would have understood that she was a perfectionist, especially when it came to what she put out. And as you said, she was also very nurturing, but strict at the same time.
No, correctly. There are 2 women that I've learned a lot about Miriam Makeba. The first being Meshado Twala, a veteran radio broadcaster who speaks eloquently about Mazi. Memoralo as well. When they speak about Miriam Makeba, they will speak about her humility, her kindness, her passion for the African continent. But safe to say that in South Africa and in some other African countries, we have not given her due honor. Hence, I kept on saying, Sipho, that even if we talk about her diva role that she has played, we never gave me a due respect and a recognition when she returned from exile. After 30 years, she went to exile. So it is important as we pay tribute to Miriam Makeba Zenzile, doctor. This country must honor its legends, must honor its freedom fighters, its cultural icons when it do befits them. And hence I said her role in the continent was well known. It is something that we should not even try to ignore it. Hence I think this country needs to not only create statues or museums, but create a memory bank that will be in the children's curriculum, that will be in the media documentaries. Hence, as you were introducing earlier, you've got musicians outside South Africa, outside Africa, doing the remixes of Miriam Makeba. So it will be important for our creative industry to start to emulate also, to start to gravitate towards the legacy of Mama Africa.
I mean, let's talk about then her body of work. She was denied re-entry into South Africa in 1960 after she'd gone to the US in 1959. And she really was a major ambassador for South Africa's political struggle, but also our brand of music. Much has been made about her marriage to Brahu and Stokely Carmichael, but the iconic images we have of her are at the United Nations, fighting for the liberation of the oppressed, and that is the Black people in South Africa.
No, indeed, when you are speaking about her days in exile, I will suffice to say that for our viewers, they need to recall that she was never even allowed to come and bury her mother when her mother passed on. And also, as you have alluded, the collective that was with Miriam Makeba, Abo Brahu, Abo Bra Kefa Semenya, Abo Bra Jonas Gwangwa, Abo Me Dorothy Masuku, Abigail Kubeka, those are the collective that live with Miriam. And as you allude about the 1963, the 1964 speeches that he made at the United Nations, those were monumental, those were historic speeches that was showing how you can use culture to can elevate the political statements and how to combat the then apartheid regime. And also those speeches, she paid a price by appearing before the United Nations to challenge the then apartheid system. And that's where even when Mme came back from exile, she had still have that pain. She still had that, one can say, a stigma that even our own government never honored her the way I have said. Despite that, we know at a later stage, there were contestation around who should represent Miriam Makeba when her copyright and her intellectual property right was stolen. So it is important to know that government have played its role, but there are some people who have colluded in stealing some of the rights of Miriam Makeba. I will give a case in point. Aluta Continua was released in 1987, was sang in 1981, but there was also an injustice around Aluta Continua as a song that was written by her only daughter Bongi, but the family and other members never got the due recognition around Aluta Continua. Not only Aluta Continua, but Pata as well. It is a highly contested song on royalties. So if one looks at that, it is important to give tribute to this woman.
Thank you so much, Advocate Sipho Mantula, as we pay tribute to Mazi, as he says.